Irishka was always a firebrand, an effervescent soul whose optimism and vitality naturally drew others to her role as a pioneer. She radiated an infectious joy that made people gravitate towards her, desiring her company and guidance in equal measure. Indeed, a few might have found her unyieldingly enthusiastic approach tedious, typically those who tended to skulk in corners, shrouded in their own cynicism. They were easily overlooked, though. The hallmark of integrity was what Irishka prized above all in a person. To her, honesty was synonymous with decency, a marker of one's character, and sharing one's life with such a person was tantamount to possessing sublime joy. Her love for music was just as profound, her voice often accompanied by the gentle strums of her guitar. As fate would have it, Irishka was the first among her peers to embrace matrimonial life. Her beau, a somewhat seasoned military figure, swept her off her feet. Their whirlwind romance culminated in a heartfelt proposal driven by deep affection and shared aspirations. However, their plans took a bittersweet turn when he was assigned to relocate a year earlier than planned to a remote military base in one of the Union republics. Irishka's tenure in that distant town lasted less than a year. Her husband returned periodically to visit. In the interim, focused on completing her education, she was fervently gearing up for the next chapter of her dynamic existence, a shared life with her husband. Upon graduation, she dashed off to join him, her heart fluttering with excitement at the thought of leaping into his embrace, showering him with kisses, and unloading a cascade of stories from her year apart. The anticipation of sharing those accumulated experiences, which she rehearsed internally, filled her with an indescribable zeal. Oh, it's crucial to mention that this tale isn't set in contemporary times. This was an era untouched by cell phones, deeply rooted in letter writing, and marked by widespread shortages. The charm of long-distance love during such times lay in the beautiful simplicity and earnestness of the written word. Well, there it was, she had made it. On the final journey via the suburban train, she conscientiously applied lashings of spittle-glossed mascara and fretted over her travel-weary hair. Yet, the rendezvous took an unexpected turn from what Irishka had envisioned. Instead of her husband, a buddy had come to pick her up. He was away on a work-related trip. Collier, his name, explained that Victor would return in a few days and escorted her to the company-provided flat, which her spouse had managed to secure in his absence. It stood stark and bare. With their characteristic vigor, Irishka set about tending to domestic chores. She set off in search of a market. In the military town, there was but one store, one section for foodstuffs, another for home essentials, a third for apparel and footwear, and a final one for small wares. Right by the entrance was the haberdashery. There, behind the counter, stood two clerks whose attractiveness struck Irishka as quite extraordinary. The foreign cosmetics they wore, notably lipsticks in trendy plum tones, rendered them almost artist-like in her eyes. Back then, the market mainly knew shades of carrot lipstick. Ira, in her simplicity and youth, had little fascination for such sophisticated beauty products, never having pined in lengthy queues for the elusive being maybe perfume. Yet there, unmistakably, was its scent wafting through the air. Ira didn't spend much time at the haberdashery. Nonetheless, she caught the murmurs of the saleswoman. Let them talk. She was the newcomer, naturally the subject of their quiet speculation. Victor returned after a few days. Everything started going downhill. Ira couldn't stand staying at home, so she rushed out to find work. Luckily, she discovered the local school was looking for a part-time pioneer instructor. She immediately began her medical checkup. Meanwhile, Victor introduced her to his circle of friends. As it happened, Collier's partner was one of the women who worked at the haberdashery shop. Ira was taken aback. The so-called girl was actually much older, not a girl at all. She was in her 40s, divorced, and had 2 kids. Her name was Polina, and her buddy who also hung out with their crew, was Toma. Ira had a knack for making friends. Victor's pals effortlessly became her buddies too. She was straightforward and genuine, and she anticipated the same candor from others. However, their interests weren't quite aligned with hers. Their primary focus was evening get-togethers and acquiring hard-to-find items. Ira's jaw dropped when Paulina revealed the hidden stash in the couch, an abundance of imported women's boots. "Why on earth do you need so many?" Ira questioned. "Why?" "Because they're as rare as hen's teeth. We can barely get our hands on them. This supply issue is the very heart of our business," Paulina explained. "Isn't that a bit dodgy? Can we even do that?" "Oh, you crack me up. Honesty is just a luxury for the naive. It's absurd to cling to such ideals in today's world," Paulina retorted with a smirk. Eager to demonstrate her knack for leadership, Ira suggested they all go camping or, at the very least, forage for mushrooms. Her proposals, however, were met with lukewarm interest. The group preferred the urban allure of cafes over woodland escapades. Reluctantly, Ira joined them in the city. She made a concerted effort to blend in, though her attempts often fell flat. Nonetheless, she persevered. After all, she had a husband to consider. She had already bought finished boots for the autumn and started stocking up on polished cosmetics. Laughter came less frequently. She thumbed through fewer books, and even her beloved Komsomol songs and guitar began to fade from memory. Victor's duty called him away frequently, often within 24 hours. These periods left Ira restless. With her school job not commencing until September, she lacked purpose and busied herself with domestic tasks. One day, she held Victor's military shirt and noticed an unexpected splash of scarce plum lipstick. She had often detected the scent of the Maybe perfume on Victor, and one day voiced her curiosity. "Vitya, maybe I'm going bonkers, but I always think you smell like women's perfume. Isn't that odd?" "It's Kolka's cologne. When I talk to him, his scent rubs off on me," Victor reassured her. The next time Ira caught a whiff of that familiar fragrance, she joked, "So you've been around Kolka again, huh?" Not long after, Victor surprised her with a bottle of the same perfume. But the lipstick, it's definitely not from Kolya. And Ira couldn't bear it any longer. It was not in her nature to tolerate such things. She headed towards the unit checkpoint to reach her husband and have a talk. But he wasn't on duty today. It was his day off. And then suddenly, Irina had a sudden realization. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Toma. Victor had been spending all his time with Toma. Every time he went on a business trip, it coincided with Tamara's sick days or departures. Their exchanged glances with Victor, their whisperings with their girlfriends, perfume and lipstick. Irina couldn't even take a step further. She sat down on a bench in a quiet alley and became motionless. At first, she wasn't even hurt as much as she was surprised. Could someone really do this to another person? To someone they were close to? That's just not right. So unjust. Her thoughts then shifted to the wilderness, and her feet instinctively carried her towards the 5-story building where Toma lived. She had been there before. Tamara had a son who was growing up, and she shared her living space with her nearly deaf grandmother, a neighbor. As Ira wandered near the building, she noticed an older woman emerging from the entrance. "Hey there, remember me? I was just on my way to see you. By the way, is Victor at your place right now?" "Yup, we're here." "Shoot. They just woke up not too long ago. Do you happen to know if his wife is here too? Is that true?" "Beats me. I have no clue. He keeps going to Tomka's place. What's up with that?" "They've been together for ages, right?" "They've been together ever since he got here. And she knows he's got a wife somewhere. What a spoiled woman." Irina came home, and like a well-oiled machine, she started packing up. It was only then that she realized the train had already left, and she was all alone here at 10:30. The next train from the regional center won't be until tomorrow. But she didn't want to see Victor in the morning, and having to explain herself was just revolting. It felt like this betrayal couldn't be put into words. All the goodness, kindness, and light she had held onto for all these years seemed to have turned into garbage. It was just plain embarrassing. Now she had to come up with a plan, head to the regional center, spend the night at the station, and catch the train around lunchtime. Why had fate singled her out? In this tight-knit military community, brimming with harmonious families, you would be surprised. This was her milieu. Being an idealist is absurd these days, Pauline remarked. Truly, through their gaze, she seemed ludicrous, an enthusiast for outings like camping or river trips. Their values differed, their perceptions of life diverged. She endeavored to blend in, to assimilate with their group. But was it necessary? Ira recalled the joyous times spent with her university friends, the laughter that followed their thesis defenses, the way they jubilantly screamed, "Hooray, diploma!" down the streets. Those reminiscences brought her a sudden surge of joy. No, she wasn't a casualty of circumstances. She was a conqueror. Her entire future sprawling out before her. She was the embodiment of innocence and honesty, with no fears nor secrets to conceal. And why on earth should she linger overnight at the train station? Her mind was made up. With serenity and without any commotion, she packed a suitcase along with a hefty bag. Anything she had bought on her own dime she took, knowing it would prove useful. She casually hummed a cherished, light-hearted university tune in varying tones, sporting a grin. Once everything was ready, she placed the key deliberately, so the door couldn't be opened from the outside, and drifted off to sleep, contented. She brushed aside any lingering thoughts of Victor. She mastered that art, focusing on the positives. In the morning, just like any other day, Victor returned home, inserted the key into the door, and gave it a gentle twist. As he did, he heard a voice calling out to him, "Victor, before I go, could you please come back to Tom? I won't let you in anyways." Taken aback by this peculiar request, Victor urgently responded, "What?" "Hold on a second, Ira. Just open the door. We can't have a conversation through a closed door. Please, open up. We need to talk." However, it soon dawned on Victor that there was nobody on the other side of the door. It was simply a recording playing inside the apartment. In need of support, Victor attempted to call his friend, Collier, but to no avail. They both sat on a bench outside the building, waiting anxiously for the train that was scheduled to depart in half an hour. Suddenly, a voice emerged through an open window, pleading, "Hey, are you two going to lend a hand?" Startled, they grabbed a suitcase and 2 bags before heading towards the train station. Victor attempted to engage in conversation, desperately hoping to uncover what Ira knew, yet she merely smiled or engaged in casual chatter with Collier. "And what's the reason behind naming this station? What's the initial settlement on the opposite side? Oh, what an incredible cooch. Do you happen to know its breed?" While Collier, bewildered by the unfolding events, was responding to the inquiries, the train arrived. Ira had already boarded, and just as the last moment arrived, she turned towards Victor. "I have a favor to ask you. Just assure me that you'll carry it out." "Absolutely," he replied with hopeful anticipation. "Travel to the school and inform them that I won't be working there anymore." The train chugged along with its wheels, and Ira was on her way home. Despite everything, there was a sense of contentment within her. She had left behind a life she could never comprehend, with a partner who deceived her, and friends who were more like strangers. Things were bound to be different for her now, that's for certain. Happiness cannot be built upon deceit.